Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in. It's Joe Caccera with the Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, as we roll through the first week of March here. Hard to believe 2017 is in full swing. Just a reminder, if you need any help in financing a purchase or a refinance or anybody you know, I'm here to help you with that. You could reach out to me, text or call 408-838-9060 or email at joe@reradiolive.com. All right, two topics today. One, the first portion of the podcast is going to be on when real estate clients buy a home for their children. So we're going to talk a little bit about the advantages, kind of the ins and outs, the lessons, the tax advantages, gifting. What are all the ramifications around parents buying property, or in some cases maybe even doing what's called non-occupant co-buyers with property purchases as well. So we're going to get into that, talk a little bit about the ins and outs of that, some of the issues around it, positives, negatives, etc. Then the second part, going to get you updated, talk a little bit about the housing markets, the ones that will be most affected by higher interest rates. I think we all would agree, whether you're in this business or not, that interest rates are going up. We've seen the last of the all-time low interest rates. We're still historically got some good interest rates in the works right now in the marketplace, but they're going to go up. And I do believe that the most recent projections are that the Fed will raise the prime at least 2 or 3 times this year. They're even talking about a raise of 50 basis points, which would have a big effect on kind of a trickle effect on the mortgage interest rate. So with interest rates going up, I'm going to talk a little bit about in the second part of the podcast, what are the markets most affected by and why? Chat a little bit about that as well. All right, so as a parent, grandparent, let's talk a little bit about run through. Maybe you've been through it before, maybe you haven't, but there's some things. One of the things that's happening right now in our marketplace and maybe throughout the United States, but I could specifically speak to the greater Bay Area in which I work, and that is we're seeing a lot of wealth being transferred from, really transferred from generation to generation. Grandparents, specifically parents, are now, and primarily because it's a high cost of living and it's really, it takes, in some cases, if you're looking at $1 million home in the Bay Area, 20% is $200,000. Not a lot of people could save $200,000 by the time they're in their mid to late 20s or even 30s if you have a job that doesn't pay you even half of that per year. So it's a challenge at best for people to buy homes in expensive, high-cost areas. Because of that, what we're seeing is a lot of grandparents, parents gifting money for down payments. In some cases, we're also seeing where the parents will actually go on the title and the loan with them and help them qualify in what we call non-occupant co-borrowers. I'll talk a little bit about that too. The bottom line here is there's a lot of activity in the area of parents, grandparents, family members, specifically gifting, willing, getting money to people for children, grandchildren for down payment, which is great. And we didn't see a lot of that, several decades ago because there wasn't as much wealth. There's a lot of wealth right now within the baby boomers generation and the older generation, And, a lot of cases here in the Silicon Valley, because of the business environment and because of property. When you have people that had no idea, for instance, they may have bought a house in Saratoga or Los Gatos or Cupertino 20, 25, 30 years ago, and they may have paid, $40,000, $50,000 for it, maybe $100,000. And they sit here today in 2017, and that same house could be worth $2.5 or $3 million. It's crazy. When they bought that, and most people back there would tell you had no idea that this was going to happen. It was before the big boom in the Silicon Valley and the business environment, and a lot of people come here to work and live, and it's a great place for many reasons, but it's also very expensive. So with this, we have a lot of this activity. So it's really a luxury. It's wonderful if you if you're lucky enough to have parents, grandparents, someone that's going to gift you the down payment, then you are very fortunate, and you should feel fortunate. I hope that you really appreciate it, because it is a big deal. It is a big deal to buy a home for the first time. Most people scrape and scrap and work as hard as they can and save up as much money as they can, and they put the minimum down with FHA or minimum financing, or really stretch the envelope to try to get into their first home. And in a lot of ways, that's a great character builder, because you have an idea of what it takes to achieve something like that. There's another side of this conversation that I'm concerned with, and what concerns me is when someone is automatically given a complete down payment, and they're not really sure or aware of what it takes to earn that down payment by, sweat equity. What does it take? Putting that $1,000, $2,000 in your savings account every month, or $20,000 a year, and then finally 5 or 6 years later having your down payment. There's a lot to be said about what that does for your character when you have to save it on your own, and you know what the sacrifices you make to make that purchase. So that's neither there in terms of when this happens. So you have these gift equities that are coming. Some people even will take gift equity in a home and use that for down payments. A lot of people, in some cases, will gift the house, or they'll make arrangements here in the Bay Area for their children to buy the home from them, because what happens is when you do that with Proposition 13, if you as a child assume the payment or purchase your parents' home, you also assume their property tax base, which is incredible. Think about this. If you were fortunate enough to buy your parents' home, and let's say they bought that home 30 years ago, and they're paying some ridiculous, let's say they're paying $1,200 a year in property taxes. It's because they bought that home 30 years ago. And that home now is worth $2.5 million. And you're able to assume or buy that property, and under the guidelines of Proposition 13 here in the Bay Area, in certain counties, you assume their property tax. What a huge, huge advantage it would be for a child or sibling or someone like that to get a home with that property tax basis, and yet the value of the home's let's say $2 million. Do you know if you were to purchase a home today in the Bay Area for $2 million, your property tax would be 1.25% of the purchase amount. 1.25%. That's over $20,000 a year. $22,000 a year in property tax alone. So these are some of the things that are happening. They're great. If you're fortunate enough, good for you. That's wonderful, and great stuff to do. Lastly, the other thing we're seeing a lot, and this happens more often as well, is maybe the children have the down payment, maybe they don't, maybe the parents help them, but the next step we see some parents and grandparents do what's called non-occupant co-borrowers. So what this means is, let's say the children, the son or the daughter, are buying their first home, and they're married. and they can't quite qualify financially. In other words, they don't have enough income. Then what we could do is add the parents' income, which helps the children qualify, and then it's still the primary residence of the children, but yet the parents are considered non-occupant co-borrowers, I should say. So what this means is the parents are on the hook, 50-50 with lending. They're on the hook for that. They also typically would go on title, and, that home would be in their name as well. But the key is their children are living in it, or in this case, their child or maybe the married couple is living in it now. And the parents help them not only potentially with the down payment, but they help them qualify for the home as well. These are happening quite a bit, more and more in the Bay Area. And what I would suggest is before we, duck out of this topic, if you have some children, or if or if you're wondering, gosh, how is my child going to afford the first home? Or maybe you're a grandparent out there trying to figure out, how can I use the equity in my home or my ability to help my daughters or granddaughters or grandsons or sons, whatever it may be, how could I help them buy a home, or how could I help them qualify for a home? You might be surprised. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't think about in some creative ways that you could help your children and grandchildren get into properties if you are knowledgeable in some of these areas, and we're here to provide that information and education for you. So if you need any information about this, maybe financing, how do you creatively make this purchase, I'm here to help you with that. We're going to take a quick break, duck out. When we come back, I'm going to talk about some of the areas in the United States will be most affected as the interest rates increase, and you may want to stay tuned because it may be somewhere right in our backyard, or I'm sure in California. We'll be back with you in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Hi, this is Joe Kuchera, host of Real Estate Radio Live and Bay Area Mortgage Planner. In addition to being your home financing expert, please remember you could always contact me for other trusted advisors such as realtors, financial planners, and CPAs. Please feel free to contact me at 408-838-9060. That's 408-838-9060, or email joe at reradiolive.com, or visit my website at reradiolive.com for more details.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. It's Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, and the second part of our podcast today. First, if you got a chance, or I should say if you missed the first part of the podcast, it was about parents, grandparents really helping children finance properties, help them get qualified, down payments, gift funds, all kinds of wonderful things that you may want to educate yourself on as grandparents or parents, and helping your children or grandchildren get into their first home. Now we're going to talk about interest rates going up a little bit, and an article that just came out recently on Business Insider in the 13 housing markets. Don't you love all these numbers? There's always the top 7 foods that were most likely to keep you up at night, or the top 12, I don't know, cars that you should look at, or the top 13 cities. It's always funny, the numbers. That's kind of the numbers that always play a part in these advertising marketing ideas. So this is the 13 housing markets that will be most, or would be most, affected by rising interest rates. Some may surprise you. Some other markets may not surprise you. So they did this survey, and it's within the Zillow group, who does a lot of real estate kind of marketing surveys and research. Most people researched their surveys, 83% planning to buy within the next 3 years. That's been some of the surveys that took place as well. So there's going to be a lot of activity. And now that there's going to be a lot of activity, then what do the people need to know about? What do you need to know about if you're going to be looking to buy a home in the next couple of years? Well, one of the things is you're going to be paying more for money. You're going to be paying more to borrow money. Interest rates are still, historically speaking, very good. They're, depending on what you look for, 30-year money still in the low 4% range. If you get into 15-year fixed or some ARM products, which are adjustable mortgage interest rates, you could still be looking in the 3% range or 3.5%, some of that nature. So rates are still good, but they will be going up. So let's take a look at the criteria here over the next couple of years. They're saying these are the housing markets that will be most affected by higher interest rates. We will start at number 13 and work our way in reverse. And so number 13, as we go through, is Austin, Texas. Ironically enough, too, some of these places are some of the most, recently the most popular places to live or move to. But Austin, Texas comes in at number 13. The average home value is roughly $263,000. And this is interesting. So what I'm going to do, too, is each of these markets, I'm going to go through the average mortgage versus the mortgage payments. Well, that's not really going to apply too much. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the average prices. So Austin, Texas, number 13, average home you could buy there, price-wise, about $263,000. Number 12 is Riverside, California, and the average price is $321,000 on the average price in Riverside, California. Again, these are places that are most likely to be affected by higher interest rates, and you'll most likely see that because of the higher home prices. Although $321,000 sounds pretty attractive if you're a person here in Silicon Valley, that's for sure. All right, number 11. We're going to stay in California. We're going to head north a little bit from Riverside into Sacramento, California, where the average home value index is $355,000. Still pretty darn good. Again, if you're a person used to living in a high-cost area, $355,000 is a decent number still, and that's in Sacramento, California. Number 10, Portland, Oregon, who has got a lot of publicity in the last several years with the popularity of people moving up north from California and lifestyle, a lot of things to do. In Portland, the home value index is at $357,000. Interesting that the value index is more in Portland in the Northwest than it is in Riverside or Sacramento. It's close, but it's still a little bit more. Interesting. You would have thought that nearly anywhere in California would be a higher average price than potentially Oregon. But Portland, Oregon, number 10 at $357,000. All right, number 9, we're going to head east a little from California, and we're going to roll into the beautiful area of Denver. So Denver, Colorado comes in at number 9, and their average home value index is $356,000. Another one of those good places to live. A lot of people are talking about the Colorado area. There's a lot of wonderful places in and around Denver, Colorado, that people find very desirable. And because of that, there's a lot of movement out in that area of Colorado. That comes in at number 9. Number 8, Washington, D.C. Surprises me a little bit. I would have thought this one, the average home value would be a little bit higher, but still, this one comes in at $381,000. The home value index, $381,000 for the average in the Washington, D.C. area. And obvious reasons why someone might want to live in that area if you are working in and around any kind of aspects of politics. Obviously, there's a draw there. Number 8, where I got that was number 8. I'm sorry. Number 7, New York City. Here we go. We're moving further east. New York City comes in at an average index value index at 400 and just about 405,000, 405, with an average value index. Again, for obvious reasons, New York, financial districts, big city, a lot of activity, a lot of job opportunity. New York City comes in number 7. Number 6 is Seattle. We're going to head back up north, and the Northwest has really become a lot more popular in the last, I would say, the last 7 to 10 years, but certainly the last 5 or 6 years. And the average home value index there is about 414,000, and that comes in at number 6. Again, good industry. I think a lot of people have really gravitated towards that area more for lifestyle and, a little less kind of crazy. If you're looking for something other than something like the Silicon Valley or New York or congested cities like San Francisco, and you want to get away and have a little more kind of a country outdoor living, certainly greener and a lot more room to stretch your arms, so to speak, would be up in the great Northwest, and the Seattle area comes in at number 6 at 414,000. Number 5, head back east to Boston. Great city, really wonderful city, and pretty good job, interesting job dynamics and business environment in Boston. A lot of people don't think of Boston, excuse me, as a strong business environment or area, but it is. There's actually a fair amount of high tech there. There's a lot of investment firms there. It's a fairly popular place, and it's certainly a beautiful city and a great place to visit and vacation to. And that's Boston, number 5. Their average home value index comes in at about $414,000. All right, as we get into the top 4, you can only imagine this home index is going to be probably jumping through the ceiling in terms of the average. So San Diego is number 4, and San Diego, great spot, really, really is. I mean, you could argue that, that the climate is really probably some of the best in the United States next to Silicon Valley. I think that San Diego may be overall index, kind of the whole weather index thing, could be the best weather around, really, as far as average weather, average temperature. It's some of the best in the United States. And San Diego comes in at number 4, and the average home value, $531,000. All right, number 3, we are back. We'll stay in California here for a while, I believe. We are at Los Angeles, kind of the Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim area. They're going to lump those all together. Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Anaheim, I should say. So the average index there, about 596,000. You can really see that going up. The obvious reasons, Southern California, Hollywood business. There's a lot of business and industry down in Southern California that allows people to get some fairly decent jobs. And because of that, the housing index is pretty high, and it's at 596,000. Number 2, here we are. We are right in our backyard, in our neighborhood, and that is San Francisco. Look at this crazy. This is crazy, though. So number 3 average was 596 on the home index value. Number 2, San Francisco, jumps up to $833,000 as the average index. $833,000. Crazy jump. It's the biggest one out of these 13, by the way. And the drum roll for number 1, here we go. Some of you may think, okay, this is an obvious one, but some of you may not think that it is more than San Francisco. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, San Jose, California, right where we are, right in the heart of Silicon Valley, San Jose, California, is the number 1 on the list of areas that will be most affected by higher interest rates. Why? Because the average home value index is $970,000. That's right. Crazy. That is think about that for a second. More than San Francisco, 25 to 30% more than Southern California or any other cities on that chart. $970,000. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in the most expensive place in the United States, or certainly one of them, and we better get used to it, and it's probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. All right, that's what we have time for today. Thank you again for tuning in. As always, if you want more information, go to reradiolive.com. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.